Hello everyone, thanks for joining the award-winning podcast To Holland Back, sponsored by Old Zoological Bar and Kingfisher. And tonight we were going to have a very special episode talking about the potential double transfer swoop of the striker Keinan Davis and the young, very exciting winger, the sort of English talent that Jaden has been talking about for many weeks now, and that we were going to sign and announce. That's Jaden Philogene from Aston Villa as well. Our guest did pop on, and I'm giving him a little bit more time, perhaps if his Wi-Fi has cut out, to come back on. But for the moment, if you could get your comments in, we can do a little Q&A. I've got some notes, and we did talk a little bit about the signing of Jaden Philogene on Sunday night's podcast. But I thought, if you are waiting, we've got 14 people watching at the moment. Get some comments in and we'll do a little Q&A about the signings or anything City related. We've got some already, but before I get into that, please, if you've got some time, go over to the Football Content Awards website, and the links are on our Twitters and all our social medias. I think if you're listening to this late on Apple, if Will has been very kind enough to put it onto Apple Podcasts or to Spotify, the link should be in that description. Simply go over to the Football Content Awards 2023 website onto voting, and like last year, we were very lucky to get the bronze medal for the best podcast. So simply type To Holland Back in the Best Podcast Football League category on there, and don't forget to hit vote. You can also copy and paste a message we've put out on Twitter, and that would actually give us a vote, so you can actually do it through Twitter as well. So yeah, going to talk a little bit about Keinan Davis and Jaden Philogene. So we've got some questions already. Tom Eggleton's asking, do you expect the double deal to be completed early next week? Now, I think the amount of time it takes City to complete transfers, especially in the Adjan Ilagella era, has been a topic of hot debate for a long time. I mean, I remember we were linked to Aliar, Syed Manesh, and maybe not other players. Like we signed Liam Walsh and Marcus Forsh on deadline day in January 2021. Was it 2022? Must have been 2022. Yes. It gets a bit confusing with the dates, and it took a while for the not for the transfers to go through, but of course we were saying it for about 3 months. When was Adjan actually going to buy the club? So I think that showed that it does take a long time actually for us to announce things, and then we did sign Aliar quite quickly after that. But with Tufan, especially Adama Traore, that was of course injury based, but we were linked to him in March of the previous year, and then he was the last player we announced signing in that crazy summer last year. It takes ages. So I mean, the whole live have said that it was going to be perhaps today. It could easily be tomorrow. Obviously not enough time for to be announced and for them to be in the squad for the Bristol City game. But yeah, I would expect the deal. Don't rush it. Neither of the deals are done. So Davis, I'll talk a little bit about the players. He's a 25-year-old striker. I think the sort of similarity of these deals is that the players that have done pretty well in the Championship on loan before, and Villa fans, we were going to have one on, but it seems that he's in Portugal, so perhaps his his Villa in Portugal, little pun there, probably doesn't have the best Wi-Fi. Very sorry about that, by the way. So it's likely that Villa fans have said that both transfers, we're getting them quite cheap. The reason why we might be getting them so cheap is perhaps, especially with Philogene, the winger, that'll be about 4 million, Davis about 2 million. Perhaps there's going to be a buyback clause in the Philogene deal, or that they're going to get a cut of the sell-on clause. So, similar with, I think, Maguire and Bowen, we got a bit of money. So yeah, early next week. I really don't know, think it was ever going to be today. It would have been nice, but we take so long. Martin Garbett says, will there be loan or permanent? Both permanent deals, which means Keinan Davis. I don't really want to count Aliar. He's been playing on the wing. So Davis is the most expensive striker we've signed since we spent £3.5 million on Nuadico, who is absolutely garbage. Maybe a bit harsh, but he wasn't very good. And we spent a whole lot of that Maguire, Clucas, money, and Andy Robertson, although we didn't get a very big fee for him, on players like Terrell, Jackson Irvin, who was okay, Stephen Kingsley, and Dicko for about 12 million in total, something like that. Not good value for money on that. So hopefully 6 million combined on Philogene and Davis from Villa will be, much better. But those are going to be permanent deals. My boss, Ant, said we'd be sad when Longman leaves as Philogene signs. Now, again, this was something I was saying on the previous podcast. Actually, we're going to have too many wingers. I thought that last year, but then half of them got injured for most of the season. So actually, we didn't have enough wingers. So the more the merrier. I saw a funny comment on the whole live sort of Q&A this morning, the web chat. Are we going to be extending or widening the pitch so that we can get all the wingers in? Enough room for them. And of course, that's a joke, but it's not a bad idea with the amount we're signing. Longman needs game time. I'd love it if he had game time with us, but above Vaughan, Aliar, Cynic, if they come back from injury, I'm not sure if they will. Cynic probably has played his last game. I still think he's played his last game for the club. He got the kilo. Connolly can play there. Slater and Traore and Tufan have played there. And if we're playing 4-4-2, there's only two wingers, but Twine could play there. So I will be sad when Longman leaves. If he's on loan, then that wouldn't be so bad. But for his development, I talk about Longman an awful lot, but really I just want to see him do well. And ideally he goes out on loan and gets some experience, which he needs. Go somewhere where the fans are perhaps a little bit more patient with him, perhaps, because they're not all like me, overly enthusiastic about his quality. So yes, if Longman leaves, if Philogene signs, Philogene looks like a good player. Only 5 goals last season, 1 against Leeds, which is always nice. But I think I've done 2 sort of skill shot highlights reels of not just the goals. You can find those on my Twitter at Nathaniel Witto. And both of them look like they can dribble and they're quick, especially Philogene. So I think he looks a really exciting signing, and exciting that, like, Twine's a very good player. Will was saying Philogene and Twine probably similar quality of level of excitement, but I think Philogene, because it's a permanent deal, he could easily be a next Lewis Potter or Bowen. Maybe not quite that good as Bowen, but I think 4 million Villa fans were surprised they're not getting 10 or 15 for him. So I think that's probably as much as we can spend financially without being sort of scuppered for the next season if we don't go up. So I think they're both incredible. Well, not incredible. Philogene's very exciting. Davis, not the most prolific, only 7 goals last year, but it's his time at Nottingham Forest that excites me. His hold-up play in that period when, under Steve Cooper, they just went on an amazing run to get promoted in the playoffs after being around the bottom of the table, or in the relegation zone quite a long way into the season, like November or something like that, maybe October. I think his hold-up play, same with Delap, they will be able to bring players into the attack, which Oscar, he's been linked to Real Valladolid and Granada. So we might be selling or loan with an obligation to buy, which apparently I've been told is the same thing financial fair play wise. The obligation to buy is quite good for the club financially. So, and this summer it doesn't count for the next summer. So if we do sell Oscar, if we'd sold Oscar a month ago, I'd be very concerned, but Connolly scoring goals, so that looks like a good signing. Philogene, Davis, Connolly, Delap, Twine, all these players, and some to come back in from injury, Tufan scoring a hat-trick. I think that if we could get a striker in Davis whose hold-up play is much better than Oscar's, then I think it will actually be a good deal. Ian Templeman, name the keeper. I don't know. We were linked, or not necessarily linked, but Rossini is a fan of the former Derby goalkeepers at Cardiff, Ryan Allsop. I think, yes, you want to bring on a goalkeeper to sort of get the best out of Ingram. Over the last 2 years, we've had Baxter, we've had Ingram, and we've had Darlow at any one time. And not only has Ingram done well, but he's also been pushed to be good, and vice versa, because all those other keepers were there. So maybe we just do need a proper keeper above the level of Timothy Lotutala, who's very young, still very inexperienced as a goalkeeper. But bringing in another goalkeeper will get the best out of him. But I think really you want a lone goalkeeper from the Premier League like Muric. We were after Man United's Kovar. He signed for Bayer Leverkusen on a permanent deal for about 9 million, so we're never really going to get him. But if we can get one that, if we're going to get a goalkeeper, I think we need one from the Premier League who can play with his feet, because that's the system that Rossini is playing, and that is the main critical critique that people have of Ingram, and quite rightly so. Very good shot stopper, and I think Matt Ingram's actually a very good goalkeeper. And the last 2 seasons when he's come out the team, he's been very unlucky because he's been one of our best players. But then Baxter and Darlow were just better. But Ingram's a solid keeper, but we need, whoever it is, we need to sign someone who can play out with their feet, because that's sort of what Ingram struggles with. Harry's saying that I need to see the thoughts as to our best 11, because we do have an embarrassment of attacking riches. How do you feel it? Fit Delap, Connolly, Oscar, Lakilo, Philogene, Davis, Twine, Tufan, Raksaki, and Davis, and how do you fit those all in? Because of the amount of attacking signings we're making, I think we're probably going to stick with the 4-4-2 that we've seen so far. Maybe that doesn't mean we have as much in midfield, because I know we want to bring in a midfielder, but Slater and Seri aren't the biggest, strongest sort of defensive. I mean, we thought Slater was a defensive midfielder. It turns out he's probably a little bit better at attacking. He had 9 goal contributions last season. So I think he sort of developed into a more attacking player when he was playing on a wing. But I think Connolly, once he's fit, he's already got 1 goal every 18 minutes. He could be a 20 goal a season striker. Clearly, I think him and Rossini are the best sort of duo you could have. They've known each other for a while, from Connolly working at the academy, or being in the academy, and Rossini working there at Brighton. So I think you want Connolly in there. I think you want Twine as a winger, perhaps, although he can drift in. The thing about positions is it's just about having the best players on the pitch. The positions, sometimes we think of it as a bit too structured. I mean, I've been reading this book, How to Watch Football by Tifo, very good book, and it's not about the positions and the formation. It's just because Twine was playing on the wing against Blackburn, but he came in, whereas Lakilo will get out wide, even though they're in the same position. They're actually in a different space on the pitch. So I think you want either a Delap or a Davis to hold the ball up, and then you want Connolly, big man, little man up front. And I think you're spending all that money on Philogene. You want him in the team, and you want Twine, and then you can have Tufan to sort of rotate with Connolly as sort of a finisher. And then, so you kind of rotate Philogene and Twine with Hakilo and maybe Alea or Vaughan. And then you have either Connolly, or if we keep him, Oscar or Tufan. And then you also rotate Davis and Delap. Like, maybe Delap isn't in competition with Tufan, but he is in competition with Delap, Davis even. Because they're the two that look like they can hold the ball up. And I'd say when all fully fit, Matt Sharp and signed, the lineup is going to be Ingram. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with Ingram. Christie, he was very good last season, so I'd agree with that. Coyle's done well, but I think fully fit, because Christie isn't fully fit yet for some reason. You want Christie in there. Jones and Greaves and Vinagre, Seri, Slater, Twine, Philogene, and then Delap and Davis up front. We'll see. And interesting you've said that, because I was thinking Delap and Davis. I think you either want a Delap or a Davis along with Tufan or Connolly. I don't imagine Tufan holding the ball up. Connolly certainly not, but they're finishing players. If you want the ball to drop, basically you want Delap and Davis to hold the ball up, knock it on, and then Connolly or Tufan as that sort of second striker, because Connolly can play on the wing to sort of finish it off. So I agree with 10 of those, but I think Delap and Davis are going to rotate, and Connolly and Tufan are going to rotate. Or Oscar's sort of a finisher as well, so maybe him if he stays. Stefan Rands, imagine Philogene is already signed and we play Billie Jean pre-match and he walks out to it. A man can dream. That would be lovely. Perhaps if they're not ready to play, Davis or Philogene could be announced at the game, but not able to play. If they're announced because they weren't signed today. But Philogene is not my lover. That's what they mean there. Harry again, a lot of Harrys. Harry Rawding this time. Guessing the CDM we're looking at is a loan. I think Barry Cooper in the whole life said that's true. Probably from a Premier League team, you'd imagine. So any ideas who it could be? Well, before it was announced it was Keinan Davis as the other mystery Aston Villa player, I thought it could be Tim Irogbunum. I don't know how you quite pronounce it, but he's another sort of strong midfield player that was on loan at QPR from Aston Villa. Maybe we could do a triple swoop. I have to change the name of this episode to triple swoop, so it could be him. I saw John Joe Shelby is available. I don't think we'd get him on loan from Nottingham Forest. They'd probably just want to offload him permanently. And then also there's Lewis O'Brien from Nottingham Forest as well. He's not a defensive midfielder, but I think a lot of teams, same with Toffolo, those two that were signed from Huddersfield that went to Nottingham Forest last year, haven't really done well. So I imagine Toffolo and Lewis O'Brien, the midfielder, definitely available. Can say the same as Salap, though, can't you? Says Ant. Not going to be prolific, but the hold-up play, bettering the team as a whole. Precisely. Oscar was a poacher. He didn't hold the ball up, so that's why perhaps the wingers struggled to score so many goals last year, because they just couldn't get it off Oscar. Whereas I think Delap and Davis, looking at the sort of, I call it a scouting report, the sort of highlights reel I made, Davis can hold the ball up, and he scored better goals than Oscar. Oscar was just poking him in from 6 yards out. Davis can run past a few people, same with Philogene. So I think that would actually be a really good pairing up. And I really want Zach Steffen on loan, class at Middlesbrough last season, who also played out from the back, and that would be the goalkeeper. Yeah, I don't know if he's still available, but if he is, I know Middlesbrough, he's not going back there. Same with Cameron Archer, same with a few players. Middlesbrough seem like they could be in a bit of financial trouble, and I think that's perhaps the worry. If we don't go up this season spending all this money, we will have Philogene, Greaves, maybe Slater. We will have players to sell, and perhaps with Archer and with Steffen. Of course, Middlesbrough sold Akpom, but I don't really see us ever being in massive financial trouble because we have signed young, exciting players. You can sell Cynic and Aliar, Vaughan, maybe Lakilo, Davis, Philogene, all these people. Obviously, you don't want to sell them, but it's not like we've maybe done a QPR in the Premier League where you sign 30-year-olds that won't have resale value in a year or two if it goes wrong. So I think we're probably going to be okay. But yeah, Zach Steffen on loan from Manchester City. He would be perfect. I would love it if it was him. But again, I think if we are going to get a goalkeeper, ideally, I think they need to be able to play out from the back. But you're right. I think Stefan Enshep agrees. Yes, totally agree, Ant, says Enshep. Get Stefan in. I would agree with that. We've got another one. If you look at teams like Stoke and Birmingham, you just see our transfer window doesn't compare. Stoke finished signing, I don't know if that's a real name, Wouterberger. I'm going to look up this guy. Premier League level midfielder. How do you think we'll do in comparison? Well, I'm going to look up this signing. I think Stoke have made 13 signings, so they're probably doing similar to last year. I think that Stoke and Birmingham I've seen are far higher on a lot of prediction tables, and I know they beat Leeds, but Leeds aren't in the best sort of form at the moment. I think that so Birmingham must have made some good signings. I know they've got Tom Brady as sort of the football player from America, the not the MLS, the NFL. So I know that they've got a little bit more money. Let me just look up this other player, but it depends, because our signings are they're not necessarily risks, but they sort of gambles. We're taking a chance on them. Davis last year wasn't great at Watford. It was decent, but it wasn't amazing. And selling Oscar, that could backfire perhaps. And you look at players like Connolly. He was a gamble, but I know he's only played 10 games for us in total. only 8 in the league. But it seems like if you can go for those players that, like you look at Seri and Christie and Connolly, even though they didn't do that well in the Premier League, Vinagre, they have that level of skill, because you don't go to the Premier League and play there for a season or so if you've just not got the quality and the technical ability. So I think it's just about applying that and staying fit. And if the players do, which they didn't last year, then I think we do actually have a very good chance. But I haven't really been paying attention. There we go, Basel, 22-year-old midfielder Berger from the Swiss league. I don't know how good the Swiss league is. I know it's good, but yeah, every club that doesn't have parachute payments, because Leicester and Southampton have signed, really good players. Leeds less so. Even Norwich have made some good signings because they're still a parachute payment club, even if they didn't get relegated last year, and they look a good side. Every club that isn't a parachute payment team has to take these gambles, and that's what we've done with these younger players, these players like Tufan, who, no one would have gone near Tufan, but because of the Turkish link, we were able to get him. Harry's there asking, do you think these signings will unsettle Tufan? Well, if he plays as well as he did against Sheffield Wednesday, then no. But I think the thing about him is that his attitude is not what it was at Watford. He's got really fit. And last year he came off the bench an awful lot, and you would have thought if he wasn't happy with coming off the bench and same with Connolly, he said he's not happy to come off the bench, but if that's what he's got to do for the team at this moment, and that's really good attitude. I don't think there is an attitude problem. I don't think there was one last year. It was just unlucky with injuries. So I think you've got to take gambles, and you've got to sign these sort of players. I wouldn't necessarily say that signing of Berger there from Basel is any better than Tufan or Seri or anyone. So, I mean, you look at our squad, and I think we actually do have quality in every position. We thought that last year. I feel like we do have more players who are sort of robust and have played well in England before. And of course, I think we were just expecting us to be top 10 or playoffs last year was a bit much, especially after the start we had. But I think that's actually, that last year was necessary, a necessary sort of stumbling block, So I think actually this year we will be stronger because we struggled last year and we learnt from our mistakes. Even halfway through the year, we started to sign more players from England. I know Keinan got injured and every way wasn't very good, but Darlow worked out pretty well. And this year we're signing Davis, Philogene, players like that from England. So I think lessons have been learned from less than ideal year last year. But I think that actually, West Brom, Stoke, or not West Brom, Birmingham, Hull City, you've got to take the gambles on players that maybe don't look amazing because financially you can't really do it. Ant says, can't see it, Harry. Rossini has come across as very transparent and clear with where players fit into his plans, so I imagine he knows where he stands, if that's about Tufan. Yeah, I think Tufan's actually showed a really good attitude, and Rossini has only showered him with praise, so actually I think that won't unsettle him. It should motivate him. You can be motivated or not, and I think hopefully he will be motivated. Harry Rawding, I hope we get Raksaki. So that's Jasuran Raksaki from Crystal Palace. We've been linked to him. I don't know if he's going anywhere. He actually came off the bench for about 10 minutes for Crystal Palace when they needed a goal. It wasn't like they were 3-0 up. They lost to Arsenal. And Roy Hodgson said that they wouldn't necessarily get rid of him. I know they've lost Zaha. I know Elise almost went to Chelsea, but they signed a new contract instead. So I think it would be a really good signing. I thought last year when you looked at young Crystal Palace wingers you could get on loan, I would actually have rather had Raksaki than Ebiwe, but Rossini wanted Ebiwe, and 50-50 really. Connolly, he wanted him, and he hadn't really been, his career had sort of stalled. That worked out. Ebiwe he really wanted, that one didn't work out, but I think we got the better end of the deal with having Connolly over Ebiwe. So I think, overall, if we don't get Raksaki, it was the same like with Dervishoglu on deadline day last year, or towards the end of the window, that would just have been a bonus. Dervishoglu from Brentford, we really wanted him. Brentford didn't want to give him to anyone. Then they let him sign for Burnley the week after. That was really dodgy, I thought. But yeah, getting Raksaki, scored 15 goals at Charlton in League One last year. I think we probably are over, other than Twine. He has had a bit of time in the Championship since, but I think we're over signing young players from League One. You look at Eves and McGuinness and Wilkes, and even you could say Longman or Tyre Smith or anyone. I think we're sort of done with that. We're looking a little bit higher now. So Raksaki would be a good signing, but I think, I don't know whether we can sell Alian Cynic now. If Raksaki comes in, at least one of those going. If Philogene comes in, you'd imagine one of those would go. But I really don't know if we have space for Philogene and another winger on top of that, because we're already pretty full. We've got Twine Lakilo, Vaughan, Alian Cynic, Longman, Tufan and Traore can play there, Slater can play there, Connolly can play there. Adding 2 on top of that, it's difficult to sign players. It's difficult to sell them for the same reason. If we get Raksaki, that would be good, but maybe Vaughan would go out on loan. That would be fine. Maybe Rotherham weren't linked with him. I think there was an article saying why they should sign him by a Rotherham journalist. Kieran Webster, I like this sort of comment. Surely it's time for Longman to score a worldie. Well, yes, but above all those listed players, maybe a worldie for Rotherham or Barnsley. I think maybe if he does go on loan, he'll go somewhere local in Yorkshire, probably in League One. Harry again, away from transfers, have there been any updates on the stadium developments in Walton Street, etc.? Not that I've heard of. It would be nice if we do get that sort of football village, sporting village that Ajahn talked about, but these things take time. Same with transfers, even longer than transfers. Ian, on the Barry Cooper Hull Live Q&A, still going on the background with, he's talking about the council, so maybe there is actually going to be some development on that very soon. Well, those were a lot of comments. Still put some more in, but for the moment I'm just gonna, because I haven't really given a sort of proper report on both Philogene and Davis, and that is the whole point of this episode. If anyone has joined since, I'll say it again, you're going to be hearing it a lot at the moment. Nominations for the Football Content Awards 2023 are open. Go over to our Twitter. You can copy and paste a tweet saying I am voting for To Holland Back in the FCAs this year. You can copy and paste that. I think it's pinned on our account, or you just scroll down a little bit on Twitter. It's also on the link. It should be in the description, maybe on YouTube or at least on Spotify or Apple when that goes up as a podcast version. So the links are all over. It's also in my blog, which you can find on Twitter, on Substack, Nathaniel Whitto at substack.com. There's links to it there. I describe it in the recent blog. So head over there, head to the Football Content Awards page 2023 and type To Holland Back in the best podcast Football League category. You can select the category at the top and then you type To Holland Back in the Football League box. And then don't forget to confirm your vote at the bottom of the page. So if we're not going to have any more comments, I'll just give a little sort of how excited I am for these 2 signings. So we'll go Philogene first. For the last month or so, Ajahn said we were about to sign one of England's brightest young talents. Could that have been Cameron Archer? Could that have been Cole Palmer? After Palmer scored a worldie at Wembley against Arsenal in the Community Shield, it definitely wasn't going to be him. And as soon as we heard it was going to be a permanent deal, it certainly wasn't going to be Cameron Archer because we can't afford him. However, Philogene, Jaden Philogene, so he's 21, had a January to the end of the season loan 2 seasons ago with Stoke, scored 1 goal. And then last season, played about 37 games for Cardiff, 4 goals and assist, and then 1 in the Cup against Leeds, which is always appreciated. I think he's very exciting. He'll bring skill and pace and cut in on his left foot and then have some shots. His long-range shooting, I did a little video of his long-range shooting and that looks quite good. And so, yeah, I think that'll be a very good signing. Seems that maybe we're not going to sign him until we can agree a buyback clause with Aston Villa. So perhaps we sign him for 5 million, even if we sell him for 15, 20 million with that buyback clause in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, however many years that would be, that's still good business. And if he isn't quite good enough, then that would mean we get to keep him if he's not ever worth the value that Villa have put on him. So I think him as a winger, another one of Rossini's top targets, presumably. That's very exciting. And then, as I said, Davis, his skill is holding the ball up. Keinan Davis, £2 million from Aston Villa. That deal, the fee is agreed. I think the fee for Philogene's agreed as well. Philogene wants to come. That's going to happen, definitely. Davis, I think, is probably deciding. There is potential for him to sign, definitely. Perhaps he hasn't decided on personal terms, but the £2 million fee, as I said at the start of the episode, that is going to be the biggest transfer fee we paid for a striker since Nuedico. We signed James Scott for €1.5 million, Aliar for 3 or 2 million, maybe €3 million, €2 million. So yeah, it's good that we're signing money, or signing players for money, spending money on these attacking players. Very exciting, along with Tufan Ali Arsenic last year. That's 5 sort of big outlays, and then probably smaller ones on the Kilo Woods and Aaron Connolly on a 1-year deal. I imagine that probably wasn't £1 million signing Connolly because of the 1-year deal. You're not going to put that much on the financial fair play in the 1 year, I would imagine. So 5 goals for Philogene last year, 7 for Davis. Not prolific players, but I think it's the skill and the pace that and the interplay that they have with the other attacking options we're going to have, which are going to be the exciting parts to those. So thank you very much for your comments. Thank you for liking. Sorry that the guest didn't come on. I don't even really think there's a possibility for me to do this next week. I'm actually on holiday as well, so on a cruise, so I won't be able to be on the next episode. So for about a week, thank you very much for all the likes. Remember to go and vote in the Football Content Awards 2023 for the nominations. Hopefully we can get one more than the bronze we had last year, and we'll see you very soon on the podcast.